Russell Wilson has been traded to the Denver Broncos. Tom Pelissero reports that there is a deal in principle to send 9-time Pro Bowl quarterback Russell Wilson to the Denver Broncos. In exchange for...
All right, back now with you on Total Access with breaking news out of Green Bay. We go straight to Tom Pelissero on the details of what's going on with Devontae Adams, who looks like the Raiders are acquiring him from the Packers. All right.
Hello!
Chat is firing off early, baby.
Listen,
Who's firing off?
Captain Jack Rackham. He's fully responsible for that comment that just got posted.
He hasn't even had any shots yet.
There you go.
No. I mean, it's like the guy was saying something about, oh no, we suck again. And I said, and I'll even put it up there in case anybody missed it, I suck too, but only in all the good ways that the ladies will attest to. And I do have lots of, chicks that can, attest to that. So.
Oh boy.
Just, hey, I missed a week. Okay, and I was.
You did.
We know what you were doing.
For all who don't know, this is Captain making up for lost time, having not had the airtime on the Wild Wild West.
Letting us know where he was at last week.
Avatar, you see Babyface Nelson up there? You see him? The Babyface assassin.
That's
not allowed within 100 yards.
I don't know if you can actually hear it. I don't know if you can hear this. It literally feels like sandpaper.
I mean, I'm not going to attest or corroborate what he said, because I wanted to make sure I got my fingers. But I'm not going to say a word that begins with P and has a file on the end. But
looks like you frequent a Chuck E. Cheese on a lot of Saturdays. You ain't got any kids with you.
That's messed up. What is he doing on the weekends besides luring kids into a panel van? Y'all are so wrong. Y'all are so wrong.
So what? So you're saying he's just there for the pizza?
I'm actually. Well, there you go. I mean, you ain't wrong.
Yeah. Man,
so,
oh man.
Anyway, I am RichiRichEh of the MHRQ Network. Wow, did this show go downhill fast?
It did. Yes, goatee gang, stand up, Avatar, goatee gang.
So over to my right here on screen is Captain Jack Rackham of the Captain Jack Rackham channel on YouTube. Go ahead, all of the links are down below in the description. Dude, you brought it up already.
Of course, you knew that was. You knew that. Nobody would wait for that. Nobody was waiting for that. We were not waiting for that.
Yeah.
They followed us on Twitter. They saw.
Oh yeah, and so I don't know if you all know this. I've said this a couple times on the show. My dad's actually a Miami Dolphins fan because in Canada we don't actually have our own team, so we just pick one. And so my dad is a Dolphins fan. So I'm actually going to be actively buying him for his birthday a Saubert Miami Dolphins jersey as a means of having Saubert live on through him. And that's going to be
it's going to be like that. It's going to be like that scene in Moneyball. It's like, Dad, this is Eric Saubert.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
His only knock, he's from Drake.
Yeah. So that's going to be my thing for I think my dad's birthday this year. I'm going to give him a Saubert jersey. He's got he goes down to Florida every year. He's got like a Dolphins like decked out golf cart and everything. It's spectacular.
Well, if he comes by here, you can tell him to say hi to me, and we'll go out, and he'll probably teach me how to drink beer.
Probably. The beer down there is like 1% or more lower than it is up here. So yeah, he'll probably do.
No. He's got to bring the good stuff. That's one of the reasons why I don't drink. That's why I don't drink American beer, man, because it sucks. I like Euro beer. Canadian beer's okay. So tell him to bring it down with him. I don't know if he can get it across the border, but there's not a lot of problems getting across the border on either side recently. So there you go.
Not to hijack the conversation about me and everything else, I'm actually heading down to Florida
Good.
at the end of March.
Okay.
In a couple of weeks.
So.
Where are you going?
I am going to Naples.
Oh.
That's south of me, man. You got to go.
Yeah.
Well, if you're flying, you will definitely pass me. But if you're driving, you will definitely have to come by me.
We will see what we can do. Below me here is the real Alex Gibbons on Twitter. You can catch him and his articles on Arrowhead Addict. And diagonally over, I even got the point right first shot, is Coach from Lockdown Defense and Lockdown Defense Podcast. Coach, I had to leave early. Did Kurt ever show up yesterday?
Yes, he did. Once he worked out his computer problems, he showed up.
Okay,
yeah, we had a special guest on. We talk about my Ravens insider came on to talk about Lamar Jackson. We had a very spirited conversation with him, and then when Kurt made it, we got deep dives into what we think is going to happen. So check that out on replay if you haven't. It was a very good episode.
And it's great to see you again. Thank you for joining.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed.
Anna has made several comments about my voice on Captain's show, so I always like to call her out and say thank you for coming in and joining us.
She's a wonderful lady. If anybody goes over to Vegas needs to go check in with Anna.
Fantastic.
Awesome.
So, guys, we have a big show for you today to go over all of the free agents rumors. Not all of them have been confirmed that were rumored, but I'm sure we're going to start kind of getting all the confirmations come out over the course of the next little bit here. So to start things off, I guess we'll kick it off with you, Coach. Since you decided to post the Leo meme and the finger pointing. Yes, we're going into that too.
Oh yeah. And leave it to you to take it literally. Like it was supposed to be a joke, and you gotta take all the fun out of it. But whatever.
What am I missing?
You Twitter. That's what you're missing. Twitter.
Yeah. So Coach posted the classic like Leo meme where they've like taken his finger pointing thing and they like dress him back up into like different gear. Okay. I just happened to take that particular meme in a slightly different direction.
Slightly.
Slightly.
Literal.
Yeah. You're right. Break it down way farther than it was intended.
Yeah.
So the free agency, man. So it's let me get the panels, the temperature in the room. Let's do the temperature in the room real quick. Like let's give everybody's opinion on how we feel about last year's offseason versus this year's offseason, first and foremost. Like we talking bombshells last year, especially in our division. Now this year it's been sparky, but has it been the same? Does it have the same level of energy as it had last year? I don't think it has, me personally. It's been good, but it hasn't been as great. That's just my personal opinion. So I think that has been pretty good. You think it was the same?
Oh, for the Broncos, we did what we should have done last year, this year.
Oh well. I'm talking about overall.
I agree though. Like there hasn't been the big splashy moves, right? Like the Broncos got Russ, Raiders got Devontae, Chargers got Mac. It's like there hasn't been like big players moving.
Right.
But I think I think all the teams have been, really outside of the Chiefs, have been pretty aggressive in adding several people though. So I think you got teams more so making, like Richie said, the right moves rather than what's the most what's the most empowering move we can make.
Yeah. Like last year was the sexy picks.
Yeah.
I got the best wide receiver in football, Devontae Adams, or, we just got a brand new, top, I'm using air quotes, top quarterback in Russell Wilson.
I do want to just point. I love how the feel of that has changed.
Yeah, the tide has definitely shifted. Answer that question last year.
Like the start of the show, right? It's so lit up. Like Russell is like, we got a top tier guy. He's supposed to play quarterback.
I've been on record saying
future Hall of Famer.
He's goated.
Well, he brings a good-looking lady with him.
That's true. That's the truth. That's the God honest truth. Like that's
the only advantage.
That's his own office.
That is a blessing that he has.
Right.
Roll
Now,
over that every day.
When they came to Vegas, we knew he was not for crap because she played at like area. I can't remember what the name of there was a club that she was playing the night before the game. So it's like good. That'll fire his ass out. That's good. So she played better than he did for sure.
Oh man.
But I will say, like, the Broncos are obviously making moves to protect Russ now. Like they didn't. They could have done that last year, and they didn't.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, honestly, I think the best move. Now, okay, I can't say that. I haven't been really keeping attention to see what the Garglers did. Sorry, Coach. I had to get it quickly out.
Yeah.
But getting McGlinchey was I mean, at least one of our teams has a good right tackle. Okay, and it's that guy. And it's like all last year,
he's all right.
Wondering,
he's no Trey Pipkins.
He's not a pass blocker.
He's no Trey Pipkin, but he's okay.
But what I'm saying is at least, and they spent money. Now, I put the post out. The Broncos were spending like a drunken sailor going into port with about 6 or 7 paychecks burning in their pocket, like they had to liquidate them, and they certainly did. Okay. So they got a really good defense. I'm sorry, Rich. I'm not going to take your full spiel, but they signed a great right tackle, a little pricey. They had a really good defensive lineman, and then I'm like, okay, I don't know who else other than some quarterback that the Raiders.
It's a long list.
But yeah, and
they got a punter.
Hey, I haven't been keeping up. I was like, okay, I'll wait until Wednesday when Richie and Alex and Coach can pontificate on all of the great signings, because there's not a lot for us. Really.
Pontificate, that's a good word. I like that. Nice college word.
That's the $5 word for the day, babe.
There you go. All right.
Did I break the conversation?
No, you're good. No, you're good. So, to get back to your point, Richard, your question, like, starting with the Chargers, I mean, we didn't make we didn't make a whole lot of, world renowned moves, obviously, but with the advent of us most likely losing Drew Tranquil, although he's still out there in free agency at the moment, we signed Eric Kendricks when he got let go from the Vikings. From a Pro Bowl linebacker. As I was telling Alex before, like, his experience and his consistency over the last, several years playing for the Vikings, it should be an added bonus for us. I've long said that a lot of issues people had or have with our linebacking core can be dated back to the idea that we steadily do not have veteran leadership in the locker room. And I also harken back to the example when we had Thomas Davis for that 2 years and Drew Tranquil was a rookie. I think that took his career and his progression to, it made leaps and bounds for him, being a former safety coming down, playing linebacker and learning, on the fly, trial by fire and having a veteran voice that he can lean on to kind of, guide his path. So I would definitely say that was a good pickup for them because I think that would, if at all possible, we can unlock Kenneth Murray. We're trying to see where we have in him and whether or not we're going to go forward with him after this year. So hopefully that he can, bleed his experience over to Kenneth Murray. So that was a solid pickup. And then we re-signed our right tackle, Trey Pipkins, who took leaps and bounds in progression this past season, despite being hurt. When he was in the game, he was not hurt. He was healthy. He definitely was effective in holding down the right side of the line. So our line is solidified. So I do like that. We cut Matt Filer and saved $6 million in cap. We were still dancing around with the idea we may sign Josh Johnson. He finally got released from the Browns, former holdover from the Rams regime when Staley was there. So it could add to our secondary. Quiet but steady moves. And I think that based upon the things we've done now, that I kind of nailed down what our draft strategy is. And I'm going to break that news tonight. Well, actually tomorrow morning at 11 a.m. I'm going to do on a 30-minute lockdown. I'm going to do a breakdown of what I think our draft strategy should be, based upon what we picked up in free agency so far. So I'm going to give that in detail on my show tomorrow. So check that out at 11 a.m. tomorrow morning. But overall, I think we're doing pretty good. Bringing back those guys, and if we hit home runs in the draft, we're off and running. So who wants to
Coach,
go next?
I did have a question though. What do you think about this rumblings with Eckler wanting a trade, I guess being given permission to seek a trade, right?
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because I did want to speak on that. And I was going to speak on it in detail more so on my show as well. But nonetheless, I believe that it's going to be an interesting scenario based upon the fact that he is at odds with the whole organization regarding his contract extension. It is weird. It's weird when you get guys that are undrafted, right? He came in a little older, right? He messed around the practice squad for a year and a half, and he finally broke through and got on the roster. He was sharing touch with Melvin Gordon while he was here, and then he ultimately lost Richie. What happened? Ultimately, became the starter when Melvin Gordon got into the same. I think Richie did that. He got into the same, I guess you can say, overall negotiation stalemate with the organization about what type of contract he wanted. I found it interesting too because Melvin Gordon wanted a certain dollar amount from the Chargers, and he never got it from anybody. Like he left the Chargers, went out there and sought out, a bigger contract, and then ended up signing with the Broncos for much cheaper than what we offered him. We offered him $8 million. He wanted 10. He settled for 5. And then he ended up being released. Now, you did end up on a practice squad for the Chiefs and got a ring, but, he didn't play.
But, that kind of happens with, every running back, right? Like Le'Veon Bell, right? He wanted all that money and ended up, taking what he was offered by the Steelers in the first place. It just never – the position's just so
Well, no, remember, he went to the Jets. He took the money for the Jets.
Well, I know, but, it was, the same money that the Steelers offered him.
It was.
He sat out a year and then got the same deal. So what do we? But like you said, I just think I thought part of me too is wondering, and I doubt they share this much with the players, but maybe there's been a lot of discussion of going running back early, and Eckler doesn't like, so he's like, if you want to do that, trade me.
Right.
And so
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if you want to do that. That's kind of like bad faith negotiations. You don't tell a guy we're looking if you're the guy in house in your job and they tell you, we're thinking about bringing this guy in to help you do your job. They're not gonna make you feel too good about it. That kind of thing.
But that's what I'm saying. But I'm sure they didn't sell it like that. But talking about the Eagles, right? Use 3 running backs. And they're like, so we're thinking about targeting running back early to get you and him be a 1A, 1B, and things like that. I mean, I don't, like I said, that's just me kind of speculating because it seemed to kind of come out of nowhere.
It did come out of left field, and it does seem odd and strange. Yes, he is on his last year of his deal, obviously, so that's one dynamic of it. So it kind of, it's gonna come out sooner or later how things were going when it comes down to his negotiation. But yet again, like you said, it's a weird dynamic because they say it's rumblings that we're going to go running back early. The running back that they're going to draft going to be young. He's 28. So it's like, you kind of threatened by the young guy as well. So if he starts to shine, he starts to do well, he's a cheaper option. Guess what? And the likelihood of me getting another contract is slim to none. Let's be honest about it. So,
he's not getting no multi-year deal. If he does, it's by someone who's desperate,
Right. But then, yet again, look at the running back market. I mean, nobody's getting big money. Miles Sanders just got signed. So did Jamal Williams and a few others. They aren't getting like $3 to $4 million.
$11 million, right?
Right, for 3 years.
Yeah, at 25 years old. So,
right.
I mean,
so yeah, $3-4 million is the base salary.
So they weren't willing to pay him a lot.
And the tag is like $10 million. So if you waited it out and tagged him, he'd get him for $10 million. But still, that's the best. That's double what everybody else is getting. Yeah. So you got to look at it from that perspective too. So I don't know. I mean, I love Austin Eckler. I've always said that he's been a running back that had to grow on me because I'm not a person that's really big on undersized backs. I think you got to be 210 or above and to be an every down back in the NFL. But he grew on me. He proved it. Guy. Right, and he proved to me that he can carry the load of a number one running back. So, I do like him. It would be nice if we can keep him, but I understand the business side of it. If he wants to come in, because understand this too. You got Josh Kelly behind you. Just drafted Isaiah Spiller, so they have options. It's not like even if they didn't go running back first round. Yeah, well, no, that's on Michelle. No, forget him. But you have options. You have options. When it comes down to having a running back, and it all depends on what Kellen Moore wants to do with his offense. If he wants to be run heavy, then you go out and get yourself another running back. Because I still got my eyes on Sean Tucker from Syracuse. Like, if you spend a third round pick on him, hypothetically, he would be a good option. And he's about 205. He runs like lightning, very elusive. So you could basically reset the whole thing for cheap and just let Austin, test the market. And hopefully, because he's under contract for this whole year, trade it for something and get something back. It just depends on what that's going to be. But I don't believe the running back market is high at the moment. It's not.
Y'all are about to get Zeke, dude.
No, we're not. Don't do that. No.
Zeke and Schultz,
and that's
baby.
Exactly. I'm glad you said that because that's exactly why I posted that meme, Rich. Because I just saw somebody say, maybe we should get Zeke after they retweeted the whole he got released thing.
Yeah.
Because Kellen Moore's OC, so they want to say, well, we're bringing all the guys from Dallas and Schultz, Zeke, anybody that got released from Cowboys. Everybody wants to come over and be him. So.
Yeah.
Who's scared of Richie?
I've seen.
That's funny. Yeah. So no, we're not signing former, runoff of Cowboy runoffs. We're not doing that.
Yeah, I've seen Fournette there, like Fournette to the Chargers a lot too. But I don't.
No, I don't believe that either. I don't believe that either. Unless it's like for $2 million a year. No, we're not doing that. We're not doing that either. So yeah, I think that we're good. Like I said, there's solid running backs. If you're gonna have two running backs under contract, Kelly and Spiller aren't going anywhere. Austin Eckler's in the air. You draft a guy in the second or third round, something around that realm, and just replace what we lost to Eckler. That's about it. That's about as far as I think it'll go. But hopefully they can work things out.
We'll see.
And at least if he plays his contract out, I'll be happy with that. If he goes, after this year, then it is what it is.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, he's 28. So
yeah, he's 28. So I mean,
he can't really be playing it.
I'm not giving a guy a 5-year deal that's 28. I mean, let's just be honest about it. You're not doing it.
That's like right around the peak age where it just goes down.
Right, do it right in the tank. Now he takes great care of his body. Now he's in great shape. They haven't had a major injury, so the odds are in his favor that he will stay healthy. However, do you really want to run that risk?
Todd Gurley, right? Like he was dominant for 4 years and then turned 27, 28. Granted, he got hurt probably a little more, but I'd say.
Well, he came into the league. Remember, he came into the league with a bad leg injury.
Oh yeah.
Richie, you're muted. I can't hear you. Richie, we can't hear you.
Can you hear the words that are coming out of Richie's mouth? The answer is no.
He can't hear you.
Nope, still nothing. Still nothing. No. Your beardless face is moving, but we can't hear any words.
Let me go ahead and try to interpret this.
Right. Can anybody read lips?
I think he's saying
the Broncos are going to the Super Bowl because we signed 2 linemen.
See, Rich, how are we doing now?
There we go. There we go.
We thought you were Han Solo again in that black frozen.
So I actually think that what's happening right now is I think my ISP is. Yeah, I think my ISP decided to take a vacation today because my internet connection is awful.
Okay.
That'll do it.
Hello.
Yeah,
We hear you.
We hear you. We hear you.
Beard.
No, there's a massive delay.
Yeah.
Hey guys, I'm gonna out. It is my connected to my voice, and but being back, my voice drops an additional octave.
That's funny.
That's from the hair pulling at your vocal cords.
It is. It just drops the voice. But if you can give me a sec, guys, I'm gonna restart here because there's something seriously wrong right now with my audio.
It's pretty good right now.
It's better now. Are you good?
It's like perfect now.
Yeah.
It's good now.
Is there no delay?
No, no.
All right.
It came back. Yeah, go
We'll
ahead and
leave it
restart.
there.
Yeah, go ahead and restart. We forget we said anything. Yeah, it's back now.
Yeah. All right. I'll be back in a moment, guys.
All right.
All right. So let's move over to Alex and talk about you guys. I guess you could say rumored moves and pending moves.
Top spot up there, man. I mean, if we're gonna talk about, I moved him up.
There you go.
I got my new hat on for you guys too, so you can read that. You guys got
Mike already made a comment about it. You know, I tell you what. Now I will say this though, and I'm not bagging on the hat because I hate the hat anyway. But white hats, man, white hats are a pain in the ass to keep clean. So I try not to get a white hat.
That's why I was just gonna stay in here. I'm not gonna wear it. I wear hats.
Yeah, I'm not. I got a white hat too. I don't wear it out. I leave it in the house.
Yeah, nah, this thing would be too dirty. My hands are effed. Anyways, yeah, to the Chiefs. Chiefs, for as much moves I'd say as everyone else has made, Chiefs have been relatively quiet up to this point. I mean, they made like big moves, but it seemed to lose more than they've retained up to this point. And I mean, the last bit of that news being Juju signing with the Patriots, which, you know, I think was kind of the writing on the wall with, with them signing them to a 1-year prove it deal anyways. Cause you know, if in all likelihood, if they won the Super Bowl, then he's going to be overvalued by someone, you know, and whoever that would be, he's going to get a little more coin than what KC was probably willing to pay for him. So looking at that one, it was an inevitable move, I'd say. And I trust Veach with not spending the money to bring Juju back, with kind of him being injury prone. And I mean, he had a good season, but he still didn't have 1,000 yards and I think missed 3 games.
And that's very curious that he signed with the Patriots. That's very curious. When I saw that,
almost for like a little bit more than what Myers got, and I would have thought they would have kept him in house, more than let him go and give it to Juju. But it's like the Patriots for so long did not make weird splashy free agent moves. They just signed like some guy that's like a write-off, and then he's like the best player ever, the next year. But it seems like once Tom left, it's like every year they do something that you're just like, what? Like when they signed, Johnny Smith and Hunter Henry, and just like the next, they just make like wild moves and let like people you would think they would keep in house walk. So I don't know. I mean, I knew he was going to end up going somewhere, getting a little more money than what KC wanted to pay. So, but as far as the moves they have made, they made a pretty solid signing with Jawan Taylor from Jacksonville for probably, I'd say, like I said to Coach earlier this week, I'm kind of in the air on it right now because I think it's a great signing if he's going to play right tackle. If they're getting him, and that's a rumbling right now, is like that they're going to move him to left and have him play, replace Orlando Brown, which if I'm doing that, that's a lot of money to invest in someone who's played, I think, like 8 snaps at left tackle.
Right.
But so they got him for 4 years, $80 million. So pretty much probably what they were trying to offer Orlando Brown, maybe a little less because he is the right tackle. But the thing when I got looking into it, he gave up more sacks. But sacks are to some degree a QB stat. You got compare Mahomes and what he does in the pocket to Trevor Lawrence. I'd imagine that it might be a little less with Mahomes and how he can escape. But the biggest thing was Jawan Taylor had a significantly less presser percentage than Orlando Brown did, which is kind of the tell-all stat you want to look at with offensive linemen, especially in the NFL. So, I mean, that's at least a promising thing to build off of. And he's only, I think, just turned 25. So he's, it's clear emphasis on finding younger guys and not investing much into, into older players. And yet kind of, I don't know if this is what Cool Kev is getting at, but I mean, I think I said this to you, Coach. That was kind of the same story with Orlando Brown when they got him and made him the solidified left tackle. He was kind of a both, a right tackle, left tackle replacement in Baltimore. Now he definitely had more experience than Juwan Taylor does at that side of the ball, but
that's the thing. He played mostly right tackle with Baltimore. He played only when Ronnie Stanley was hurt a couple of games. We actually had to play left tackle. But I think Juwan Taylor and him at the same line with how much right tackle versus left tackle they played. I think it might be the same numbers.
Yeah, I mean, I don't, because I can't remember I don't think Taylor was a left tackle at Florida, but I think Orlando Brown was a left tackle at Oklahoma.
Was it?
I don't know, but
yeah, I'm not sure either.
But either way, I'm cool. I like the move. I think it's if you're going to invest money in some offensive linemen, the amount they did, I prefer Juwan Taylor to Orlando Brown. And I think I think now with Orlando Brown, every day he goes unsigned, the money he's going to take is going to go down.
It's
a lot.
going down.
I mean, he went on NFL Live today, and
I know I've read that.
So, well, he basically admitted he needed help on one-on-one blocks, which is not what you want to pay your left tackle, $80 million guaranteed for.
Oof.
So, I think it was a good move to solidify the offensive line a bit, especially losing both tackles because Andrew Wiley signed with the Commanders. But like I said, it's kind of up in the air on where I would grade it or feel about it, depending on what they want to do with them. Because there's also rumblings they're going to trade for Tunsil in Houston, but that's
is that before or after he comes out of the mask with the dope?
maybe both.
In between hits. With the mask, then gets traded, then he goes back into the mask with the dope. I got it. Well, you got it covered both ways. That's good.
Well,
yeah. but
yeah, marijuana is legal in most places now, so I think he's good.
It is, yeah, and in Missouri. So
there you go. But
so two to be seen, I guess.
It's Missouri.
Yeah, it's Missouri. It's Missouri, son.
No. Okay, I'll take the joke, but don't ever call me son. In that equation, you got that flipped way wrong. Got that way wrong.
All right, well, you want to say Pop? It's Missouri Pop.
There you go. Pop's okay. That's right.
So that was kind of the only move so far they've made on offense. So a lot to still be seen, especially with Juju going to the Pats. A lot to be seen on what they're going to do on that side of the ball. My guess is that they're going to make a move for a veteran wide receiver and then kind of just unload the rest of the draft on defense. But we're still early in the free agency, and there's still a lot of decent players out there, so we'll see what they do with that. The other big signing that they got was, I think came announced last night, but Charles Omenihu, the edge rusher from San Francisco. And honestly, I think it's pretty solid signing, especially for getting rid of Frank Clark and bringing in this guy who's essentially the same player, but younger and a little more athletic, and for a pretty good salary and a pretty team-friendly contract. So the interesting stat I saw with him, kind of deep diving into, because if you look at his stats, he didn't have like a whole lot of sacks, but he played on that line with Nick Bosa and pretty good San Francisco defense. But so the crazy stat I saw was there was only 5 players that had a higher win percentage than Charles Omenihu from the edge rush position. And that was Myles Garrett, Nick Bosa, Micah Parsons, Nazarius Smith, and Trey Hendrickson. So, that's a pretty good little company to be in, and feel pretty good about signing the guy for $20 million, who's at least last year was putting up some, defensive stats like that. And I think he was on top 15 in total pressure. So, pretty, Andy, I think 26. So young, athletic guy that wasn't crazy expensive. And I think is going to do exactly what you had Frank Clark on the side of, opposite side of the line to do. And so it'll be interesting to see how he meshes with Chris Jones and Karlaftis, but you got to think that he'll be able to put up similar pressure stats, playing opposite of Nick Bosa to go into playing opposite from Chris Jones. So I'd say pretty good signing in that route. And then we'll just kind of see, like I said, what other moves they make will, I think, kind of be more telling about what they're going to do in the draft. But I really think that they're going to get a DeAndre Hopkins or like an Adam Thielen and call the receiving room good with the young guys that they have, and then pretty much spend the rest of their 13 picks on defense, and probably make some trades to move up for guys they like. And like I mentioned, the potential Tunsil move, I don't know how much heat I would give to that. So I'd say if they don't do that, I think round one is them going left tackle, but still a lot of names out there in the free agency period to really know, but that's kind of where I see this roster heading with the moves that Veach has made. And so far he's hit on almost every free agent and pick that he's made. So until that's substantially changed in the narrative, I'm gonna trust in him.
Okay. So if you had to pick one, I guess you can say free agent that you could pick any free agent you wanted to that's still out there that you wanted to sign with the remaining cap space you have, who would that be?
Yeah, I don't. I'd say not really knowing who's, I guess, out there right now. I would like Cap. I have to consider the Cap right now. Because I guess not considering the Cap, I'd get like Adam Thielen, because I think that he wants to go to a contending squad. I think he would take a cheaper deal, and that's a guy that you could get in there knowing that you want to trust more in Tony and Sky Moore and MDS, so these younger guys, and get someone who's kind of had to prove himself and did it pretty consistently for a good time, and on top of still being a pretty solid red zone threat. So I think that would be kind of the move, to want to keep the status quo on the offense, but also build up your rapport and your confidence in your younger guys. Now, the reason I asked about the Caps, because I'd say Gardner Johnson from Philly.
You stole mine, because I was like, I want CJ. I want CJ.
I want
CJ Gardner Johnson. That's for sure.
Juan Thornhill. But I don't know exactly where the Chiefs cap space is at right now. And to be honest, I think they could free up $15 million like that by restructuring Mahomes' deal. So I don't know but I do expect them to make one more bigger, splashier play. Like I said, might be the Tunsil thing, but maybe they sign Gardner Johnson or get someone like that, because they did lose Thornhill to the Browns. He signed a pretty respectable contract with Cleveland. So they are down a safety that was a young and pretty solid guy opposite of, at free safety. So, we'll see. But that would be my wish list guy is Gardner Johnson, because that dude can ball. But I think it's kind of shocked that he's been unsigned this long, to be honest, because I don't think he's that old. It's just,
he's very young. This is his first contract, his first long-term contract. He's a rookie.
But it makes you wonder if he's got some underlying medical thing that teams are freaked out about, because he played well for the Saints as a rookie, and they didn't want to extend him. Then they trade him to Philly, played well for Philly.
All down for Philly.
Got him to the Super Bowl. They didn't want to extend him, so it's either he's asking for a bunch of just an outrageous amount of money, or he's got something that
gives people pause. Gives you pause.
I don't know.
Yeah, it's possible, but outside of that, he's definitely a steal.
Mahomes would definitely restructure. You know how much money that man makes from endorsements alone?
Actually, Anna, Miss Mahomes would love for her husband to restructure. And the reason why that is a restructure front loads all of the money that you make in the year that you're restructuring, and you get it as a one-shot bonus. So if you're talking lifestyle of the rich and famous, which is what you're hinting at there, Miss Mahomes would welcome the restructure because the bank account would grow very quickly in one big shot, and I think she would be just fine with that.
As part of that deal, can we restructure to have Jackson Mahomes shipped off somewhere where you can't get back to the U.S.?
Oh,
that dude, boy.
Wow.
He stayed, I'll give him this. Jackson Mahomes, I feel like, stayed relatively quiet this year. And then, a week after the Super Bowl, he got caught on camera, sexually assaulting a restaurant owner. I don't know why I just laughed, but come on.
This guy.
All you got to do is just stay out of people's attention.
That's the problem. He wants attention. That's the issue. That's the issue.
I have no skills, and my brother's so good, so I have to do really dumb crap so that you pay attention to me.
Right. Yeah. Tied his rope to his belt so I can stay seen.
Yeah. Honestly, you should get for Patrick Mahomes. You should get the next game. You should get one of those things that they had when I was a kid, where my parents had on their wrist. It was like a little a Velcro thing.
Yeah,
and then it had a little chain that was attached, and then it went to a little Velcro thing that went on my wrist as a kid.
Yeah, a leash.
Yeah, like a leash, like the kid leash.
I don't want to say
it. Get that, and then on the other side, you just put a picture of Jackson Mahomes, and you just hand it to him. And you're like, "Here."
I think my mom's in the chat. She could attest for that. We went to the mall. I was on a leash.
Wow.
Yeah.
You should have the full body one that had, strapped the whole body with a leash in the back,
like
you're a
pit
bull.
That.
You did?
I had that.
Yeah, they have that too.
Damn.
And the chomp thing, they had to pay for that.
It didn't have a ball in it, did it? It didn't have a ball in it. It didn't have the ball.
Man. Your LA privileges are history.
Confirmed.
We're not going to say anything about this. Your LA privileges are history.
The ball was for the weekend.
Yes. Yes, indeed. Oh, man.
Now, Mama Smug, just to confirm, it was not a repurposed S&M accessory, right?
Yeah, man. I'm sorry. Anytime you talk about a leash with a red ball, I always think about Ving Rhames, man. Ving Rhames in friggin' the Tarantino film, and that's everything I think of, man. I just think of that.
Yeah, I remember that scene in Dodgeball when they had the swap of the uniforms.
Yeah. He's like, "What's this? You must be Daddy." How am I supposed to play it?
Yeah. Yes.
Oh
man.
So funny.
Yeah, the collar and the leather and the assless chaps. That's it. Oh man.
Turn around.
Oh.
Man.
And with that, back to football.
Right, and back to football. And back to football. So, Captain Jack, let's talk about these Raiders. So,
is that the segue? We go from S&M to Captain Jack. Okay.
That's right, man.
We're going to Garoppolo and where he belongs, man.
Hey, man, let's talk about Jimmy
Captain,
Garoppolo.
In fairness, we went from leather to leather, so there is a rather seamless transition there.
There it is, and there it is. And
Yeah,
you drafted
funny
Alex
too about that
Leatherwood.
seamless transition when you're talking about assless chaps too. There you go.
Well, we know you got a pair.
I do. Wait a second. They are called biker chaps, and they are assless. I can actually go get them.
You got a motorcycle? You buy?
Yes, I have it. I have my Harley. I have a Harley. They are assless chaps. They are for a bike.
They're for your trips to Vegas, baby.
Oh,
When I get out, whenever I get out there on my dyno low, I have the assless chaps, but they go over the pants.
and let me guess, they say black hole on the back.
No.
It says always open.
Ghost Rider, that pattern is not full. Anyway,
man.
I mean,
No,
I admit
he wears the assless chaps, and then he wears the other T-shirt that he has that says "Walk the Plank."
There you go.
Okay, yeah, that kind of like felt like a fart in church, but that's okay.
Like a fart church.
The Raiders have other than Jimmy Sex Toy. And
Wow.
I am, and people have been asking me about it since Monday, and I just said, I'm just going to let it percolate because I am sick and tired. I'm sick and tired of being. There's immediate. I mean, you got to say immediately what you're thinking. The Raiders signed Garoppolo, and they trade Waller. Oh my God, the sky is falling. Okay, and I got to talk about it immediately. No, I'm not. Here's the thing. I was going to do, and I am going to do a show tomorrow on it. I'm thinking about the title, but here's the gist of it. Okay. I have one of my buddies, a young kid who's a Jaguars fan, was just telling me, he said, "Oh man, Carr is a winner, and you never should have gotten rid of Carr." And then he goes and he quotes his record, and his record is below 500, right? So if you suffice to say that Carr is a winner and his record is below 500, you've already lost your argument right there. Okay. Now, granted, it's not all on him, but you lose your argument if you're going to throw out facts that don't back what you're saying. Garoppolo is, and I've said this for the last couple of days as well, he was the least objectionable of all of the quarterbacks that I did not want. Let me say that again. He was the least objectionable of all the quarterbacks I did not want. I did not want Tom Brady. I did not want Aaron Rodgers. I did not want Jackson. Okay. Richie, I did not do anything. Okay. And he broke down by himself. My hands are here, so I did not touch anything.
Yeah.
Okay?
Oh, he did that. He did that.
But the point remains, of all of the quarterbacks that I did not want, and I was on record, I did not want Jimmy G. Okay? But at least Jimmy G is a legitimately decent quarterback if, big if, excuse me, you get games out of him. And that's why I said I want to see how the contract is structured. And from what I've been hearing, the contract is structured based upon how many games he plays, what his status is. I think overall, and I've heard different things, that it was $67 million, it was $70 million, it was $35 million guaranteed. And that's immaterial. I want to see about how the contract is structured, and by the way, how the guaranteed money is structured as well. Because to be honest, I like to see the guaranteed money in the first 2 years, and you're out the third, so you don't owe anything on the third year. That's how I would like to see it. Or break it down where you can throw that money out in a signing bonus. Because, like I said, he is a decent quarterback. I said decent. He's above average. He knows the system. So if you get the games out of him, it's not a bad signing, especially for the amount of money that you had. And I'm still on record saying this, Jacoby Brissett is still out there.
No, he signed with someone, didn't he?
Not to my knowledge, because Baker Mayfield signed with the fake Pirates today, and they're jumping up and down like they won the Super Bowl. And I'm like, really? Baker Mayfield and
the Commanders.
Brissett signed with the Commanders.
Yep.
Okay, well,
Commanders.
Again, news to me.
I think it happened like 20 minutes before the show. Sorry.
I apologize, was not up on it. But the biggest signing that the Raiders are going to make this year was not Jimmy Garoppolo. is who is going to be the backup. Because pending Garoppolo not being healthy, that's the most important signing there is. That's the most important signing there is. And
That's a good point.
Let me talk about losing Darren Waller.
Okay.
Because everybody, I know that Gabe is up here. Gabe is like a Mrs. Gibbons. I'm sorry, it's going to get a little gross. Okay. Gabe's is a masturbating 16-year-old who just shot his wad because he thinks that he signed the greatest tight end in the history of football. Okay. And I'm like, no. And he has the same problem that Garoppolo has. He is a fantastic player with fantastic stats and ability when he's healthy. And for the last 2 years, Darren Waller has not been healthy. So they said, the Raiders got fleeced. The Raiders got fleeced. Well, I don't know everything, all the ins and outs, but I do know he was a locker room cancer last year. I do know that there was a lot of dissension with him in the locker room. So if you have a guy that doesn't want to play for you and is a real pain in the ass and is not even available, I'll take that contract and get rid of it. Because I want players that want to play for you and that are worth the money.
He played good till he got his money. Which happens with a lot of people.
It does happen to a lot of people. You're right.
Suck more chrome than a trailer tarp. Trailer tarp. Oh, there you go. I knew I was going to get that analogy in there eventually. and know the best wedding present that Josh McDaniels and Mark Davis gave to him. He just gets married to his bride Vegas, and then like 3 days later, his ass is out in New York. So I will take a 3rd round pick, which is actually, and I was found out about it, which is the pick that they gave that they got for Kadarius Toney.
Yes,
again,
it is.
Same thing.
Yeah.
Great player if he's available. So I'll take that 3rd round pick, and you're talking about a lot of picks. The Raiders, as of right now, have 12 because they had 11 and they just picked up a 3rd. So 12 picks is a lot of picks to maneuver around, go up and down in the draft. And again, it's not official. I saw that they had signed the Eagles safety, but I haven't seen that as an official. His name was Epps.
Marcus Epps.
Marcus
Epps.
Epps. Not official.
Yeah, he signed him, Marcus Epps. Yeah.
Okay, but it's not on any of the sites that I've seen, so I can't say it's confirmed. I do know that the Raiders signed coach's favorite player about an hour before the show.
Yeah, you did. Did catch that one, yeah, good luck with that.
Yeah. Coach,
Speed bump Tillery.
Different players play differently. Different players play differently in different environments, doing what is asked of them. The Chargers wanted him to be the Taj Mahal and do everything for them, and he didn't do it. He sucked with the Chargers. But what the Raiders asked for him to do last year, he did quite well. And he did enough.
He did.
That they signed him to another contract. Again, I don't know what the numbers are, but he was a damn good come back in, a rotational defensive tackle. In fact, he was one of the better defensive tackles that the Raiders had last year. So they re-signed him. And other than
I'm not saying much, but go ahead though.
This got the call wrong in the Rams game. Yeah, it was a bonehead play, but it was not a 15-yard penalty. It was a 5-yard. But that's what everybody, and that's what I always remember about it. But when you look at what his game film says, he played rather well. He was last year. Jerry Tillery was the Darius Pilon.
Oh, that's highly inaccurate. That's highly inaccurate. He was not that. He was definitely not Philon.
He was. Let me finish the analogy. He was somebody that came in and played well in the spots that they asked him to do and played above and beyond what was expected of him. Did he play up to what Darius played? No. but he still came in and played well in the spots that he was asked. And Pilon is still out there, and maybe he'll be out there again for somebody as well. So I'm saying we signed Epps, we re-signed Teamer, we signed Faison. So we went from the Raiders to the Colts, figured out that he wasn't used in Indy, and
y'all just like former Chargers, because Teamer and Faison are both former Chargers. So is Tillery. Y'all like former Chargers, huh?
Well, no, this is you.
Do they make stops in New England too?
Well, yeah, that's it.
No, see, that's it. The new logo, if you've seen it, is the old Patriots snapping center logo with the cross shields, and it's unfortunate, but that's what's going on, because they signed, they went out and they got Jacoby Myers, and then they signed the other kid that was the first rounder that didn't really do anything. His name escapes me. I'm sorry, but they're getting adequate players. They're filling roster spots and needs. So I'm liking what they do. They lost their backup quarterback to the Broncos. I think that's going to be a good pickup for the Broncos, because they brings the whole friggin' playbook with him. Because not only does he have the Raiders playbook, he actually has McDaniels' playbook up here. And that's the best thing that they have, is he knows that system quite well. So that's the best signing that they have. So even if they don't keep him on the team, they're going to bleed him dry for knowledge. So they got him for a couple months just to see what goes on. Who the Raiders have a backup right now is Garbers, and I think that they're going to have to sign somebody of substance, and they are going to draft a quarterback in the second or third round. It's almost guaranteed. So we need to figure out what's going on here. But again, I am being patient. I am not going to jump up and down. It's like I want to see what the whole picture brings. And again, it's mid-March. Come at me in another year, and I will see whether these panned out or not, because you don't know in mid-March what's going to happen. I mean, people were talking. I mean, the Broncos last year were thinking that they were going to the Super Bowl with the signing of, he who shall not be named. Not you, Richie, but everybody else that was in Denver high as a kite on the good Colorado ganja was talking about Super Bowl with Russell Wilson. Okay, it's mid-March. I am older, and I'm in the military, man. I'm a military guy. I'm going to take things, and trust me, I've been shoved things up my ass sideways without benefit of KY and have to like it and nod my head. I don't like it, but there's nothing I can do about it, and I'm going to have to go, yes, sir, yes, sir, and yes, sir. I'm going to take it for what it's worth. I'm going to be patient, and I'm going to see what happens.
The one thing I will make a comment about McDaniels, I know there's a fair number of Raiders fans here, Captain. Your Captain's Galleon's here with you in terms of all your fans from your channel and everything. And for those that are joining Captain, seeing this after the fact, obviously having been through quite literally exactly what you are going through right now with the Broncos. So I don't know if you guys, remember or have kind of gone back to look at what McDaniels did when he was with Denver. What he did in Denver was he did a very similar thing to what is happening right now with the Raiders. Is they took a bunch of guys off the team that either didn't fit or had bad attitudes or didn't have that kind of I want to be here kind of mentality, and he just got him gone. And the one thing that I think Broncos fans that are critical of McDaniels are not giving credit for is the vast majority of the players that were on our two Super Bowl teams were almost all McDaniels picks. All of them. Like all of those top defensive
Peyton
guys.
Manning.
Well, no, Peyton Manning came in the year after, or a year after or 2 years after they got rid of him. But when you look at the core players that were on the team, in terms of one of the reasons why Manning obviously selected the Broncos is because he liked the supporting cast that was there in order to, elevate himself. You had Eric Decker, you had Demaryius Thomas on the offensive side. You had Noshawn Marino. But more importantly, you had an offensive line that was largely drafted by McDaniels, and you had a reasonably good or a solid offensive line, not great, but solid. And then it was then further bolstered by having a quarterback that knew what he was doing and knew how to play the position and had a system that he brought with him that was going to work. I think when you look at what you're getting with McDaniels, is McDaniels values the offensive linemen, particularly the interior, and they also value defensive linemen, again, particularly the interior. And I think that that's what Raiders fans are going to be in for. And I think you're going to see a lot of ugly picks in the draft, but needed picks in the draft for the Raiders so that they actually get better and can help keep a guy like Jimmy Garoppolo on his feet and being able to make those sharp passes down the field that you're going to need him to. That's my prediction for the Raiders, is I think you're going to see a lot of big guy picks in the draft. Your interior lineman, interior D-line, that kind of stuff. Ones that you're going to say, but they're going to do well for you.
It starts in the trenches, man. You build from the
100%.
bottom up.
I think they're going to take a QB too.
I was going to ask that question because you said he got 12 picks, right? What is the odds that they package some of those later picks up and then move up in the draft a couple of times to get players they really want?
Yeah, it's possible because again, they ended up, they got an extra 3, so maybe they trade their 2 3s for another 2.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Get like Hooker,
like that.
Hooker to Vegas.
I can see that.
Listen, we're gonna speak it into existence. Hooker to Vegas.
I want a Hooker in Vegas.
Bring the Hooker home.
It's a day, and like I said, I'm normally at the Alara for all the hookers that need to be out there. It's normally at the Alara. They'll come find.
I did
people at the front desk know Captain Jack. Well, let's put it that way. But there you go. Is we need either a hooker or somebody that would be the McKee to our future.
I see what you did there.
From Stanford,
I see what you did there.
I did see an interesting talking about McDaniels, and I think it's been funny to see the stuff David Carr's been saying after Derek left. And granted, he has his own podcast and his own show and tries to pump up his own stuff. But, he was on the show talking about what McDaniels wants. He's like, ever since Tom left, because Tom was a guy that was like, this is what I want to do. And if McDaniels said no, he'd go to Belichick. If Belichick said no, he'd go to Kraft. And so it's like, that said that McDaniels just wants a QB that's not going to tell him what he thinks or what he wants to do. He wants a guy that'll just run his system and throw the ball where he tells him to. And so he didn't say it, but he basically implied that, that's not what Derek Carr was doing. And so it was kind of clear that he was going to just trade for someone. And that's why he went with Stidham and goes for Garoppolo, because it's guys that know his system and he knows will listen to him more than give him pushback, which, to his credit, though, that might be what he had Mac Jones looking good and got to the playoffs. So it might be what needs to be done to fulfill his vision. And honestly, I didn't think that the signing I kind of saw the Jimmy G signing happening, but I didn't think it was a bad one because it's essentially the same guy as Derek Carr without the money. And I honestly would say Jimmy G has performed better in higher pressure situations and won games more than Derek Carr has with his arm. I think he can't stay healthy. So I'm curious to see. I'd imagine there's a lot of game incentives and playing full years that will make that contract worth the $70 million. So I'm kind of curious to see what the base value is, because I bet it's pretty team friendly. You got to think about it. Every year Jimmy G's been thrusted into starting, outside of picking up where someone else got hurt. He gets injured, Yeah. And even I think in the Super Bowl year, he wasn't 100%. He was playing through something, but he still got to the Super Bowl, and that seems to be a fact that people he was on a good team, but he didn't lose them games. He managed the game well and moved the ball when he needed to, and I think that's what McDaniels wants, and I think that's kind of the roster he's building. So, I honestly kind of view it as a keeping the same or potentially upgrading a little bit, on also not hog tying your franchise.
Yeah, yeah, I agree.
Well, I want anarchy, so I'm saying y'all taking Anthony Richardson at 7.
Oh God.
I don't know.
No, and again, you guys, and Coach, you know where I went to school.
I do.
You know where I went to school. So, and I am on record. I am on record. If McDaniels does everything that he did in Denver to us, that's one thing that I do not want to replicate.
Well, I understand that.
And by the way, if I'm not mistaken, they both had the same number.
You might be right. Let me Google that real quick while you're talking.
Number
Richardson
15.
and Tebow. Richardson and Tebow.
Number 15.
Yeah, they do. 15.
I got two 15 Florida jerseys hanging in my closet.
I think by them signing Garoppolo, that's them telling you they're not going early with the QB. I think that they're going to look for someone who, like you said, McKee or like Hooker. Although Hooker's getting like second round.
They did with the same number, 15. You're right. They did with the same number.
But I think that signing tells you that they're not going to do that unless they're like bringing. But I mean, you're not paying a guy $70 million to be your backup.
Well, I would argue that you probably need a couple of years with Richardson or Levis to develop.
But see, you know what?
So if you did do that, they'd be guaranteed to sit.
I am of the mind that if you're going to have a guy that's taken in the first round, let somebody else groom him. If you're going to develop and groom somebody, that is at top, that's a second rounder at top. Okay. You don't sit nowadays, you don't grab a quarterback in the first round and let him stew for a year or three. I think
they did that to Jordan Love.
Chiefs did.
They did that to Jordan Love.
Chiefs did it.
But that's what I'm saying. The last person that did that, they still let him stew. It was for over a year, and it was that guy's quarterback.
It wasn't over a year.
It was at the end of the very
first year.
It was a year. He played the last game of the season that first year?
Yeah, he did. Yeah. Against Denver.
But at the same time, if I could see the Raiders doing something like that if they kept Derek Carr on his contract and brought someone in, and were like the Chiefs didn't have to fill their whole QB room and then take a guy in the first round. Like they already had Alex Smith, and they already had a competitive roster, so it was like they could do it. And so I think that's why you don't see the Raiders go sign Jimmy G to $70 million and then turn around and take a guy at $7 million. I think they were probably trying to move up and couldn't, so got Garoppolo and are going to look for someone they like later who will probably has just as good a shot as the guy, because they probably wanted to be Stroud or Young and couldn't get that. So it's like probably lump McKee, Hooker, Richardson, and Levis all with the same sort of grading. And so it's like, why not wait and take a guy later and have someone we at least know can put out some production on the field?
I have a different opinion, actually. I have a different opinion, and I think it's a little different for this reason. Jimmy G already comes from a McDaniels base offensive system. Yeah. And so to your point, I kind of see Jimmy G in a similar vein as he enters into even the first year with the Raiders, as being in a similar position to, say, somebody like an Alex Smith was with KC. Because he had multiple years where he was being groomed behind Tom Brady, and everyone thought that he was actually going to be the heir apparent. If you remember right, from when Tom Brady was in those years there was some pretty major rumblings of the fact that they're going to try to push Tom out to have Jimmy G take over for the Patriots, right? And then they jettisoned Jimmy G out instead. But actually, that was when Kraft stepped in, was the rumors, was Kraft stepped in and said, no, Tommy stays. And of course, it was right, because that's what Kraft actually called Brady.
Tom went to Kraft himself. He went to McDaniels, and he went to Bill, and they both said no. And then he went to Kraft, and Kraft made him do it.
Yeah, exactly. So I think when you look at Jimmy G, I think he is the Alex Smith of the Raiders right now. And with that in mind, given it's not a bank breaker in terms of a contract that they signed Jimmy G to compared to what the market has been traditionally for quarterbacks, especially as of late. So I think they've done themselves a bit of a favor for the quarterback room to kind of keep themselves within a certain box once you draft someone potentially even early. And even if they did pull kind of what the Chiefs did and take a QB early in the draft, you could let Jimmy G kind of be that mentor role and allow Jimmy G to leave himself a legacy in the NFL, given his state, and then have him retained as like a 1A, 1B, even for next season, and be perfectly fine with the contract you signed him to.
Yeah,
I
mean,
feel like
I see
it's
it,
a
but then
pseudo.
that's like the Trey Lance situation. Then you're gonna just have like, oh, are they gonna start Levis or Garoppolo? Like, when will Levis overtake Garoppolo? You know, and
I don't think
that,
McDaniel's going to be like that, though.
I mean, he probably doesn't want it to be like that, but the media is going to make it like that. I mean, the minute they draft someone 7th overall, they're going to be like, when will they overtake Garoppolo? I mean, it happened with Trey Lance.
And that is why I will give a $50 bet for everybody that anybody on this panel wants. And I don't normally bet on things that I can't control, but I'll lay $50 that at 7, the Raiders do not take a quarterback.
I agree with you, so I'm not.
Yeah, I mean, I just look at Jimmy G's injury history, and I'm thinking they would want somebody in the house that's pretty, I guess you can say savvy from a talent perspective in case he goes down. So I was thinking you would let him sit as long as he's healthy. But the moment he goes down, you can throw somebody in there that can get it done.
Plus, I mean, think about all these other teams.
The most important acquisition the Raiders make now that Garoppolo has been tabbed is who's going to be the backup. That's going to be the most important acquisition that the Raiders make. And it's not a draft choice. It's not a choice. It's who is going to be number 2 for the Raiders, because I'd love to see Jimmy G go through a whole season. Imagine the stats he would have and what he could provide when he get injured. He would be a definitive upgrade over, because at least he knows the friggin' system. Okay? He doesn't have Waller to throw to, but he has Jacoby Myers. He's got Devontae Adams. And he's got the other kid that didn't pan out. What's his name, Richie? I forgot.
Renfro.
No, not Renfro. The other kid that they got from the Pats. A first rounder that didn't pan out.
Jonnu Smith?
Okay.
No,
they got Jonnu Smith's on the Falcons, but they picked up a first rounder from the Pats that didn't pan out. So you got that kid, Jacoby Myers, Renfro, and Adams. He's got enough good receivers. In fact, the receiving core has gotten exponentially better than what the Raiders had last year. They lose their tight end, but you know what? Losing somebody that didn't put forth an effort as far as availability is not like losing anybody. And they did re-sign Horsted, and people look at that like, well, who? Well, Horsted is kind of like our version of Saubert. I'm not saying he's as great as Saubert because I don't want to have an argument with RichiRichEh. He's a underrated tight end that does well, catching and blocking. So they re-signed the kid that they saw some ability with. So now we just got to go and get him some bookends. And that's what I'm saying. Availability is the best ability. And that's what I think the Raiders did. They pick up a third. And again, I'm not going to do the namaste kumbaya shit, but I'm just going to sit back and watch. I want to see it develop. And hopefully, again, because no day is promised, I will live to see something beneficial within the next couple of years. When I retire, hopefully within the next 3 years, and I will be able to do this a little more often.
N'Keal Harry
from Chicago?
Harry. No, he was originally with the Patriots.
Yeah, I think they traded him to Chicago.
I saw the name. It's not N'Keal Harry. He played for the Texans last year. Go ahead, sir. But Dorsett, yeah, that's right.
Dorsett.
Philip Dorsett. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. So I actually think it's going to be
Leon and Jack now. Go ahead.
I actually think it's going to be an interesting one. One of my predictions is going to be that McDaniels is going to probably try to recapture a little bit of what the Patriots had in their tight end room, because this is an extremely deep tight end draft.
It is.
And
Definitely is.
And there's about, we were talking about it, I think it was last week, guys, where we were going through some of the draft prospects and combine and that kind of stuff. And I think that the Raiders are well positioned where they could kind of go a really big kind of Gronk-like tight end, because there's like 3 of those guys that are in this draft that you could probably pick up.
Out of Notre Dame comes to mind.
Yeah, and so to me, that's very McDaniels, New England, dual purpose, multi-threat kind of guy. And then I could see with an extra third where you guys might double dip on the tight ends because you don't have any on your roster right now. Very similar to what New England did in their draft, and then get 2 just solid tight ends that you can really wreak havoc by playing them in different positions in different ways on the field. Because McDaniels did very well with that, and I think Jimmy G would do very well with that too.
Yeah, it makes sense, though. I mean, why they sign all those people.
Yeah, well, 100%. I agree with this comment for sure.
What about Jack's comment that he'll get fired next year?
Who?
McDaniels.
No, Jack is a hater. I love Jack, but he hates McDaniels. He calls him McShitnuts. And that's, I
saw that right there.
that's the kind of thing, and that's why I said, Jack, I love you, brother, but you know what? You and me and the rest of the people that are here that are bitching, moaning, and groaning, we don't have a say. We don't have a say. So roll with it, man. Roll with it. See what happens, and give him and here's the other thing. I firmly believe that McDaniels went to Mo or Curly, depending upon if he really did shave his head or not, Davis, okay, and say, this is my plan, and it's going to take 3 years. And if Davis bought in on that, and he gets rid of him at the end of year 2, you're not going to see what that 3rd year is going to be. So if he has security, knowing that he's got last year, this year, and next year, then I think he will have to produce something by next year, because then he can can his ass. And I didn't say the S in front of can. Okay.
Mm-hmm. I agree. Because the other thing to remember is that McDaniels was kicked to the curb at the end of, I think, year 2 in Denver, if I'm not mistaken.
He didn't get the year 2. He got halfway through year 2.
Yeah, and when you look, like I said before, early in the podcast, most of his guys that he brought in through those back-to-back drafts were the vast majority of the core players that ended up doing extraordinarily well in the Super Bowl for the Broncos. And so he clearly had a vision, and I think he can point back to that now in Vegas and say, look, it's not like I was that far off. Most of my guys were the ones that did the thing. And I think that's a fair thing to point to. I did want to cover off the Broncos free agents who went on a rollback binge, it seems, in terms of spending crazy.
I see what you did there.
Yeah. Crazy amounts of money on a bunch of players. Now, in fairness, we did free up a boatload of cap space coming into this offseason, so it was going to happen one way or another. As I said earlier, what we didn't do last year was bolster our offensive line enough with the right types of players in order to protect Russell Wilson. I said that even on the podcast before. And that we protect Russell Wilson.
That's right, Bubba.
We did not do very well. And I think our offensive line was part of the reason why we did not do very well. So in order to help protect and kind of do better there, one of my favorite pickups was Ben Powers, a guard, who's going to likely replace or is going to replace Dalton Reisner. I think that he fits the type of bully mentality that Sean Payton is looking for in a lineman. Sean Payton has an eye for the trenches, and so I have a pretty high degree of trust in that as a selection for a guard to replace Reisner for our team. We spoke about him briefly in the earlier part of the podcast, but the Broncos have been needing a right tackle since like 2014. And we finally got an extremely well-rounded right tackle. He doesn't do one thing really well. He kind of does all the things above average. And that is better than we have had in eons. And I think that is a fantastic thing for us. He typically does a little bit better in run blocking than he does pass protection. But as my guy from the Niners, from the Candlestick Chronicles and Niners Wire pointed out, last year before he got hurt, just a quad injury that he kind of had to recover from, but he did get hurt last year. McGlinchey had massive improvements in the pass pro rather, and did not have his run game suffer either. So if he can continue those gains in his technique and everything else, I think he'll be a fantastic player for the Broncos. Someone I think that all of the division opponents will note when they're playing, that there's a huge improvement on that right bookend for the Denver Broncos. Jared Stidham's going to replace Brett Rippon. I don't think there's any shock or surprise to anyone here. We all kind of know what Jarrett's going to bring to the table. We signed Chris Manhertz to a 2-year, $6 million deal. He's a primary blocking tight end, which, when you bring in those big packages and you bring in kind of a mix match that you're looking for tight ends, I think Manhertz is going to effectively replace what we had with a combination of the two tight ends, one of them being Eric Saubert that we let go. And then we re-signed Alex Singleton, who was a tackling machine for us last year. I mean, he was clearly a top. We needed to bring him back. I also want to point out, if we do a rewind back to earlier episodes of the Wild Wild West, Capt, I think I was also on your show where I called him out as well. I specifically said Singleton was a spectacular pickup, one of my favorite pickups of the offseason. Many in Broncos country laughed because he is a former CFL player and kind of a one-year wonder in Philly. Well, look at his stats last year and tell me I was wrong. And you're wrong because he did so well. He had a few issues in coverage, but by and large, he made up for it with all the other plays he had on the field. Every player is going to get beat from time to time, so Singleton's going to be no different to that. Zach Allen comes over with Vance Joseph for just another great week of practice as our defensive coordinator. And he is a great run stopper in the interior of the D-line, someone to pair with DJ Jones, who had a great year for us last year. So I think it's extremely important that we brought him in. I think that he is going to bring a skill set that Draymond Jones struggled with, and that was run blocking. He did not do a particularly great job, Draymond Jones, in terms of protecting a run and blocking against the run. He often got boxed out. Zach Allen is not that guy, and that's not going to happen. And I think that we're going to see a tremendous improvement in the run blocking from Zach Allen. I think the one thing that we are going to see is quarterback pressures, especially in the latter part. We saw Draymond Jones really turn it on. And I think that Zach Allen has traditionally not been that guy. He has not gotten the quarterback pressures. He has not had as many tackle for losses as we've seen, say, from Draymond Jones. But I think Zach Allen's much better in the run game. We have a few other kind of throw-ins here, but I'm going to quickly mention that we did bring in Michael Burton He was the fullback that was on the Chiefs last year. And for those who don't know, he is the fullback that was with Sean Payton when he was with the Saints. So that's a familiarity move. I recognize him. He recognizes me. Clearly there's some, nepotism and the other, however you just want to call it. I know you, you know me. Here, come over, play for me instead. And last but not least, we brought in Sam J. Perrine from the Bengals, and we needed to bring in at least one. And I do believe that we are going to bring in another running back because Javonte Williams is likely not going to be healthy for the beginning portion of the season.
Mm-hmm.
Is that Samaje Perine that you're trying to say?
Perrine.
Yeah. Samaje Perine. I was like, who?
Perrine.
I thought it was a practice squad guy he was trying to pronounce. Perine.
It's Samaje Perine because he went to Florida, and I can at least think what his freaking name is.
Didn't he go to Oklahoma?
Samaje
Perine.
No, it's Perine.
Perine.
You can mispronounce it all you want. Just like
Mama call him Perine, I'm gonna call him Perine.
Yeah.
That's right. It's Perine. Because the Perine boys are from Florida and Oklahoma.
There you go.
Oh. Trying to find this thing I saw earlier because I don't want to misquote it, but it was talking about how there's like a 6-day period right now for Denver to select some option with Russ's contract, and if they do, it like significantly lowers the cap hit this year. But they have like 6 days to do it. I was trying to find it.
It's probably the trigger on whether or not they're going to lock themselves in
for like 2028 or something.
No, I think it's for 2024. Because I think if they lock in for 2024, it kind of like redistributes some stuff. Whereas if they don't lock themselves in for 2024 as the option and they kind of figure it out whether or not they're going to then move forward with it or not, I think it doesn't spread it out as much or something along those lines. So
yeah,
it's something like that.
That'll be. I was trying to figure out. Yeah, when I saw it, but that'd be the interesting thing to watch. Just if they, because you would think you would do that, right? For now, especially if you're trying to spending the way they are right now, then you would think they would do that because you could find a way to get out of it in the long run. But why not exercise that and lower your money right now and see what happens?
Yeah, and I think if you did that, you spread it across too.
Yeah, exactly.
I think we spread out the damage across an extra year if you were to cut them outright. But that actually might be the conundrum because I think if they don't commit, I think it's less of a dead cap.
Yeah.
And then you're spending less money if you get rid of him. But then I think if you commit to it, then he plays like he did last year, for example, for the majority of the season. Then you're really up a creek because then you basically committed to a boatload of extra money up front. Just as an FYI, some of the notable free agents that the Broncos have lost, Calvin Anderson signed with the Patriots. I actually expect him to probably be their starting left tackle. I think he would be a great pickup for them. And I think you're going to see some pretty good things from him because I think he's quite a talented, gifted left tackle, not a particularly good right tackle, which is what the Broncos were trying to shoehorn him into being. Andrew Beck signed with the Texans, and Mike Boone signed to the Texans as well. And of course, the biggest of the free agent signings away from the Broncos was Draymond Jones, who signed with the Seahawks, who oddly enough replaces Shelby Harris from the Russell Wilson trade. The Seahawks. How
crazy is that?
It just blows your mind.
Shelby back, dude. Bring him back.
I would totally want him back on the Broncos. He's a unique, gifted player. He has a skill set and a knack for batting passes at line of scrimmage. It's pretty remarkable. With regards to remaining players, I still think that the Broncos need to make decisions, and I kind of need to hear more about the offensive scheme that we intend to run in terms of what we think it's going to look like. That will have some huge implications in terms of did we replace Andrew Beck? Like, is Andrew Beck's tight end role now just basically being filled by Burton? And if that's the case, then we basically have two tight ends to potentially fill on the roster. Or are we
You guys are getting Taysom, dude. Taysom Hill's going to be in Denver before the season starts, I'm telling you.
Right.
Little guy.
Right. But I think we need some additional D-line help, and I think we need at least an additional inside backer to deal with some stuff.
You bring up Singleton, right?
Well, no, we got Singleton, but
yeah, right.
Like we have Singleton, and who else? And who else? Like it's.
They spent quite a bit in that first little period.
They did.
No,
they hold out some money.
My point is, you can't go in to, with your 90 man and have virtually no inside backers. Like you need at least one or two inside backers to compete, unless your plan is to draft one in the third round.
It's possible.
And even then, you're banking on the fact that there isn't a run on inside backers and the guy you want is actually going to be there, which in the third round is a pretty big gamble. Right? Yeah. So we really need to pick up another inside backer that we feel comfortable with that could kind of act as a backup or start if we needed it. And we really do need to pick up someone like that.
Fair enough.
Yeah. And then I'm really excited for Caden Stearns, who's likely going to replace, I believe, who's going to be let walk is Kareem Jackson. Caden Stearns, I think, is a guy that AFC West opponents are going to have to pay closer attention to. He got hurt early last season, but the season before that, he had key interceptions and key moments of key games. And I think that's a guy that you guys really ought to make note of and kind of follow him on the field. I think he's going to be a pretty dangerous guy. So far, I think that the Broncos did what we should have done last year, which is fill out the offensive line to protect a quarterback that you bring in. We just decided to do it backwards. We brought the quarterback in first, let him look like crap, and then are now filling out the offensive line in hopes that he doesn't get killed again.
Are they still trying to move Bowles, or is that kind of that talk
that's quieted down a little bit?
Or Sutton and Judy.
It's Sutton and Judy that have really seemed to pick up some traction in the media space in terms of moving on from everything I've heard. Consistent price tag for Judy has been a first round pick as a minimum. Yes, Judy has had some. Yes,
it's a no for me, dog.
Exactly.
Yeah, he really started to turn it on in the latter part of last year. And so
but I mean,
I think it's a stretch.
It's like a 10th overall pick and just turned it on in the latter part of its fourth year.
Third year, but still, we get the point.
That's tomatoes, right
there. You go.
That you said, you really gotta turn it on if you want to get.
What he said.
What he said? What he say?
I don't know what he said, but what he said. What he said.
Yeah.
What? Oh, I'm sorry. Was I garbled?
Yeah. Yes. The audio was inaudible.
Was I garbled?
Yeah.
Like we know you talk, but we have no idea what you said.
There you go.
Okay. What I said was it took his agent to tell him, you really got to turn it on so you can start getting payments.
Yes.
Yeah. He said, "Hey Jerry, what are you doing?"
Right.
Yeah. 100%.
He did, though. I will say it was like a night and day different player because I think it was like the second half of the Chiefs game, and he went into half, threw his helmet down right at half, and then just came out and I had 3 touchdowns, 2 or 3.
Yeah.
Did it coincide with him firing Hackett? Did it coincide with that?
Yes.
It might have.
Yeah, I think it did. I think it did.
No,
I think it did.
No, Judy's first game that he turned it on with the Chiefs, Hackett was there.
Okay.
and then I think it was the following game after that. No. Hackett lost to the Chiefs, but it actually looked respectable. What actually made it more challenging because they actually started scoring touchdowns.
Yeah.
And then they got blown out. Then they proceeded to get blown out the next game. But Judy actually had a good game in that game. But he was like one of the only ones that looked good. And then
all I know is that dude has burned me one too many times in fantasy.
Yeah, I can't do it. Can't sign up for that no more.
Yeah,
done.
But and then Sutton is also being shopped around right now.
He also burned me. Done. I invested hard in Sutton and Javonte Williams last year. It didn't pan out.
Yeah, it's rough go.
No, but I think Judy. I think there's a potential, given where things are at with him, that he might go for like a first in the future, like next year. I don't think you're going to get a first from this year, though.
I don't think they're going to get one at all. I mean, because you also got to pay him.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, well, the one thing you have to remember is that Denver, this has been an unfortunate piece for Judy, is that he is a technician when it comes to route running. Like, he has very, very polished routes. And a guy like that needs to have an accurate thrower of the football. So, and this is kind of what I'll say for that. When you look at Renfro, and when he had his kind of top tier years with the Raiders, he had a quick throw offense with Derek Carr throwing him the ball.
The dog don't like it.
That ain't me, because I ain't got pets.
It's not me, dude. Mine are sleeping.
Dog don't like it.
Well, I started talking about the Raiders, and my dog Bronco started getting angry. So, I guess I've trained him well. But I think that you need a specific type of quarterback to throw a technical style receiver like that. So you have Renfro. I'd say Judy's in that vein. You have the guy, I think, from the Rams.
Cup.
Pardon me? Cup, like Cooper Cup. Yeah. So you've got guys like that are and then if you kind of go back in history, you get like your Wes Welkers, for example. Even Julian Edelman is another guy that you could kind of put in that general category, where they're basically, it's all timing and route running and the technical elements of the wide receiver position. And you need a quarterback that can throw them in stride.
I like Anthony's comment.
Pardon me?
I just like Anthony's comment. I think it's the most all-seen take on it.
Look, I actually agree that he has not lived up to what his potential should have been given his draft status. But I think at the same time, you have to say that he didn't have the greatest quarterback play.
No, I mean, what first 3 years of that was Drew Lock, Teddy Bridgewater, and Case Keenum, or
something like that.
I don't even.
Joe Flacco.
I mean, yeah. Oh, Joe Flacco, even better. Okay.
Yeah.
There you go.
And Case Keenum. So before that was Case Keenum. Then we moved on to Joe Flacco. Then we went on to some other smattering of random quarterbacks. And then we ended up with, as you said, those other ones there. We just haven't had great quarterback play that had been accurate with the football and can throw him in stride consistently. And so I think once you get a quarterback that can step up accuracy and actually get him coming out of the breaks and hit him timing-wise properly, like your Peyton Mannings could with Wes Welker, or your Tom Brady's with Wes Welker and Julian Edelman, once you get a quarterback like that, you're good.
I do have a question for you, Richie, because I'm just kind of curious as to your thoughts. I guess it's not really official yet, but I know I kind of wanted to ask after Coach tweeted, but I was going to ask you anyways. This news with Rodgers most likely going to the Jets, and basically kind of the Jets, it seemed like bringing Hackett on to make that allure, which I firmly believe was what was put in play last year for Denver.
We both firmly believe
and
that.
It didn't happen.
Right.
And so I'm just curious as to your thoughts on, I guess, that now, given both, how Rodgers has acted literally at the end of every offseason for the last 3 offseasons. I mean, plus it kind of need to see what they gave up for him, but just like, I guess where you would rather, if you would have preferred that move to go or are fine with where things are going now.
I was on record to say that I didn't like the draft. I was on record saying that I didn't like the draft capital that we gave up to get Russell Wilson. He didn't live up to the draft capital that we gave up. We gave up other players, which I thought were actually doing fairly well for us, with Shelby Harris and others. As an example, because I mean, Shelby Harris was having a pretty darn good year, and he was like $9 million, which for an interior D lineman that was playing pretty well, that's not bank breaking in terms of cash outlay for a guy that basically had 2 years left on a relatively team friendly deal. So and we were getting production from him as well, both run game and pass game. So I actually think that I was on record saying I preferred Rodgers coming to Denver. I also think that his style of play better fit the outside zone scheme, which is what Hackett likes to run. And I also, for whatever reason, I kind of felt that Hackett was never really able to install what his actual offense is. I felt that there was probably some pressure, not only from him, not only from Russell Wilson, but probably also from the GM and ownership to basically collaborate with Russell Wilson. And once you go too far down that road to kind of hybrid an offense, you're kind of stuck with it. Captain, to kind of take a bit what you said with with McDaniels there, very similar to that is, if Hackett says, I want to install the outside zone system and kind of go back to kind of this type of stuff we did before, and then ownership, rather than saying, okay, you take the reins, says, no, we're going to tell you half of what you need to do, and you're not going to be able to do everything that you want to do. You're going to end up with a coach that cannot actually really do what they want to do, and you're going to end up hindering their ability to function. Now, that doesn't take away from the fact that there's been all sorts of pretty clear-cut things that have come from Dove Valley where, Hackett was not doing well. He did not have a handle on things. It was a bit of a hot mess, that kind of stuff. So fair enough. Like, two things can still be true. He may not have done particularly well as in the head coach role, but if he was handcuffed, then he may have also been compensating for the fact that he was being handcuffed to try to smooth things over with the players by perhaps overcompensating by being more loosey-goosey where he otherwise might not have been.
Yeah. Well, that's what I said, too. It's going to be interesting to see what the Jets, if it does happen, have to give up, because I've seen stuff that says Green Bay's going to want a Stafford-type haul, which I believe was 2 first-round picks. And I don't know, to me, that's a lot for someone who literally 38. Every year says, I'm going to retire.
And 38 years old?
Yeah. They could do that, and they could just, shit could hit the fan, and the Jets have the same record they had last year. And he's going to spend the whole offseason saying, nah, I think I'm going to be done, because he just strikes me as a dude that wants everyone to think, he wants his fame. He wants the people to like, what's Aaron Rodgers going to do? And so to me, it just seems like I would have, regardless of how bad it went with Russ in 1 year, I think I'd rather have him moving forward, because at least there's prospect of development. I think with Rodgers, it's just not good. He's either going to do really well, but it's going to be by his way, or he's going to do bad and then just dip out, and you're screwed.
I see, and this is where I disagree a little bit. Is Rodgers was more of a mobile quarterback, and he intentionally reset his course to become a more pocket style passer. So when you look at the way Rodgers is playing the game now, he is more slice and dice from the pocket, run around and extend plays when I have to, but not as a default mode. Russell Wilson Rodgers did that 5-6 years ago when he was still mobile enough to actually still move around if he had to. Russell Wilson never adapted his style of play. He never realized early on in his career that he couldn't sustain this, running around, the schoolyard, chucking the ball all over the place, because eventually he's going to get older and he's not going to be able to, dip, duck, and dodge these D tackles and D ends and outside linebackers. And he's going to get himself absolutely slogged, like as if someone threw a wrench at him.
Thank you.
There you go. There you go. Great dodgeball reference. Way to bring it full circle, Richie. Good job.
He's having a poopy flavored lollipop, right?
There you go.
Yeah. And
He loves the smell of queef in the morning.
yeah.
Like, yeah. Is it necessary?
But that's exactly what the point here is, that I think we're seeing Russ slow down. He came into this season and he did not look particularly fit. And, if you're not going to come in, lean and trim as an older guy coming in with a mobile style of play, you're going to either not be fast enough to get out of the way, which he wasn't, or because it could be both, you're going to be slower than you have been every year from this point forward. And because you haven't adapted your play, you're still going to struggle because you're trying to play a brand of football that doesn't work. I actually look at a guy like Baker Mayfield as an example of that, where he was never as quick as Russell Wilson was, never as athletic, but in his mind, he thought he was.
Well,
and
I think in Baker Mayfield's mind, he's 6'8".
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
But that's my point, though, right? Is just because you think you can here doesn't mean that your actual actions show that on the field. And I'm concerned that Wilson is in a little bit of that, having those issues right now. That's my concern.
Yeah.
And so I actually think that Rodgers, as long as he's capable of committing, I mean, the one thing you can't say about him is the dude's still got an absolute cannon of a right arm.
Yeah. I mean,
it's
just
cannon.
To me, it's just there's so much, and like I get it because the Jets now, especially now, because you got all other viable options. To me, the Jets were a quarterback away from making the playoffs and at least it being remotely competitive. So I mean, they have to get Aaron Rodgers if they want to build off last year. At this point, it's Aaron Rodgers, or they have to somehow trade up for the top 5, one of the top 5 picks. So I mean, it's going to be, but it just seems weird that they're doing so much and like allegedly he's got a wish list. They signed Lazard. They're like talking to Randall Cobb, like doing all this stuff for one person who I like I said, every year just seems halfway out the door.
Just on that wish list. Sorry, go ahead.
I'm sorry. And the Raiders, they did make the inroads, because it's coming out now that obviously the Raiders wanted Brady. That was their option one, and he retired. That was option one. And it's coming out now that they asked Green Bay about the trade, and it was way too much for the offing, and that's why they went to option C, which is Garoppolo. And again, of all of the quarterbacks that I didn't want, Garoppolo is the least objectionable. So I'm glad that 1 and 2 didn't turn out.
Well, you got to think too, like trading the 7th overall pick for Aaron Rodgers. Like, I mean, presumably if it's that, like, why? No way in hell am I doing that.
No, and again, and Rodgers, and we've said it, and Richie said it every year. It's like, I think that maybe.
Yeah, he wants to go on every show and talk about it.
Retire. And, I'm not really sure. I'm not really feeling it. I think I'm going to go smoke some dope and go into a dark place.
Sit in the dark. Like, I knew, seeing, I think it was yesterday, I get the tickers, like, from Bleacher Report. It said, Rodgers going to be on the McAfee show at his normal time. And I'm like, this mofo is going to say he's going to go to the Jets because he wants to be the one to say it.
Uh-huh.
He wants to be the, center of the news. And I even someone, I can't remember who on ESPN said, I see him playing at least 3 more years because this is finally the time. Brady's officially retired, so it's finally the time for Aaron to be like the goated one, right? And so maybe he does, but it's just so much to give up for someone who's 38 and just not fully invested. So especially as the Jets have a young team, it's gonna blow up.
I think too. I think it's gonna blow up too. I totally agree with that. I don't see a situation where this goes well for them. It does. Yeah, I don't get it. I don't see it. And again, the Jets, much like the Browns, are a desperate franchise. So they're desperate for anybody to have any type of notoriety from a quarterback position to be their starting quarterback.
Well,
they never had one.
Big QB they got was Brett Favre.
Right. I mean, a guy you loathed and despised when you were in Green Bay and couldn't wait till he left. You doing the exact same crap that he did in his career. I mean, come on. What are we doing here? What are we doing here? I saw a meme that said that it was Brett Favre. It was Aaron Rodgers in his uniform, and then he took a shot of like an ayahuasca drink, and he turned into Brett Favre, an old Brett Favre. It was just weird in a Jets jersey.
I saw one that said Rodgers said, "I'm going to New York," and Favre said, "Don't text any pictures."
That's a good one. That's a good one.
Damn it! You hit my mark, man. I was gonna say. I wonder if he's got any D-pics on his phone that he's shooting to like female sports chicks.
Well, yeah. Now Favre was stealing Mississippi welfare money for.
Yeah, that's another thing. Yeah.
And suing Pat McAfee for slander, like defamation. Yeah.
Yeah, defamation. Yep. Mm-hmm. Exactly what it was.
No, but I agree that the Raiders should have backed out, though. You know, that if that is the reports that they reached out, I think that's a smart move.
I would have too.
I think that kind of full circle brings us to what you said at the beginning of the show, Coach. I think if this is last year, the Raiders are doing that, right? They're like, oh yeah, here's all our draft capital for Aaron Rodgers and Devontae. What do you guys want? Here you go. But it's like, I think it's a different tone that you're seeing every team make. They're not making the splashy moves; they're making the right moves and making sure that they build.
All those splash moves didn't generate the return they wanted to. So everybody's making smart moves this year.
Exactly. You know what? They can. He can smoke whatever the hell he wants and drink whatever the hell he wants. He can do it in New York. Flash defect. You know, first off, his mental acuity has gone down because his chicks have gone down progressively. When you go from Olivia Wilde to Danica Patrick,
Olivia Munn
to Olivia, whichever one, Wilde or
I think he was with both of them, honestly.
There you go. I mean,
I don't know.
That's primo. That's like 12s on a 10 scale between the two of them, right? And then you go to Danica Patrick, who's a solid 8.5, to Woodley. I'm like, really? And I don't know who he's going out with now, but I'm sure she ain't even all that in a biscuit. Okay, I could probably throw him some meat that's probably better.
Probably someone that he's really connected to celestially.
There you go.
Celestial plane.
There you go.
I got a celestial plane right here. Which brings it back to the beginning as well.
Yeah. I didn't mean to get us on a Jets tangent, so that's my bad.
I think I'm in the minority, obviously, on the panel here. I actually think that this was the right move for the Jets. I think that they had an unbelievably talented defense. I think Aaron Rodgers has not had a talented defense even remotely close to this, and I think that includes a Super Bowl team because that Jets defense was legit last year. And I think that it is important for Rodgers to have a solid defense so that he can not be forced back on the field so regularly like he was in Green Bay. I think that's an important thing given the fact that he, as you said, he is getting older, obviously. And I don't think he's suffered in terms of his arm strength. And going to New York, while it's still a cold climate, it's not Green Bay cold. And so he's in a spot and he's in an area and he's in a city and whatnot where he can get high level, high end deals for endorsements, and then he can also take a team and hopefully be the difference, which is really what someone like him is looking for and looking to do. I actually think this was the right move for both him and New York, given their circumstances, and I truly think that you're going to start seeing a different New York team, one that you're not used to seeing on the field. So, I mean, that's just my opinion, but we'll see.
That's true, but that still don't mean they're going to make any deep runs in the playoffs. I mean, you think about it, you're in the AFC. You're in the AFC. You got to face Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen,
Sure.
Joe Burrow. I mean, you were better off being in the NFC where you have a better chance of making a deep run of playoffs because the NFC isn't as tough. But the AFC, you got to go through the gauntlet. Let's be honest.
Yeah,
you know,
you do.
The top.
No, you do.
You would argue the top 10 quarterbacks in the whole league are all in the AFC.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I agree. And so I think it's going to be interesting. I do think that what we're seeing from all of our teams, when you look at the true free agency pickups from all of us, is we've started to make kind of more chess moves rather than, flashy checkers style moves. We're looking to do kind of the full team building rather than, oh my gosh, I got like this one really great thing that I think is going to do well, which I think is a huge thing.
I will add, as this shows, as of 15 minutes ago, Chiefs restructured Mahomes' contract, created $9.6 million in cap space. So might see a move happen tonight.
Possible. I mean, breaking news. Play attention to your Twitter feeds because it's breaking news practically every day.
Pencil, baby.
And Alex, before the show started, you and I were talking. My prediction was I thought that KC was going to potentially bring in Clowney, who got released by the Browns because they need some help on their D line. Clowney would probably come to Kansas City on a cheaper deal because they are obviously a contender given their current situation. I could see something like that working out for KC because that's the type of thing that I could see your GM trying to pull is to get a guy like Clowney or something like that. But anyways, we have gone through each of our free agent signings. We are going to start looking ahead for what we're going to see in the second wave, which will really kind of add into it'll really start to be very telling in terms of what we're going to do in the draft. And I think that's really what the next wave is going to do for us. And we might even have some rumors on draft trades by next show as well, because I could see those types of rumors starting to spin up as well. But until next week, guys, where the West Side is the best side. Peace!